In section 3, we will be covering scoring big. If you haven't already, I would recommend that you watch the previous videos in this series. Let's get started. Firstly, we're going to talk about combo length. So generally, the longer the combo, the higher the score. The key to longer combos is maintaining speed and balance. So these are my top 10 tricks for doing so. So always hold Ollie. Well, almost always. So holding Ollie makes you move faster. There are some specific situations where you may want to slow down to fit in 2 jumps into a small space, for example, but generally you should always hold Ollie. Grind and manual as little as possible. The less you grind and manual, the less you need to balance, and the less you grind and manual, the faster you move. Never double grind. Double grinding, which is grinding the same rail twice in a row, gives a balance penalty. Never manual more than twice in a row. So manualing more than twice in a row gives a balance penalty also. Do not move the balance meter when unnecessary. So for both grinds and manuals, if the balance meter is not moving, do not move it. There are some lines where you do not need to touch the grind balance meter at all. If you start moving the balance meter, you are going to destroy your balance. Do the opposite manual to the manual balance meter. So if the manual balance meter is in the bottom half, do a nose manual by pressing down up. Because the last button is up, this will nudge the balance meter up slightly. If the manual balance meter is in the top half, do just a manual by pressing up down. Because the last button is down, this will nudge the balance meter down slightly. Stay in the air as long as possible. So the longer you stay in the air, the less you need to grind and manual. And again, the less you grind and manual, the less you have to balance and the faster you will move. Use boneless and woolly plant to gain more airtime. Following on from the previous tip, boneless and woolly plants give you more height and therefore more airtime. So always boneless and woolly plant where possible. Do not use overly complex lines or take unnecessary risks. You need to follow a line that you are comfortable maintaining for a long time. So don't use overly complex lines or take any unnecessary risks, especially when you are getting close to your target score. Finally, in my opinion, if using a controller, use the D-pad, not analog. This is for 2 reasons. Firstly, with D-pad, there is less margin for error when pressing directions. Left is left, right is right. There is no kind of in between. Secondly, with D-pad, it's easier to make minor adjustments to the balance meter by tapping the directions. Okay, so let's look at these tips in game. Number 1, always hold Ollie. Holding Ollie makes you move faster. Remember, this also applies for grinds, manuals and wall rides. Number 2, grind and manual as little as possible. The less you grind and manual, the less you need to balance, and the less you grind and manual, the faster you will move. You can see that in this line I am grinding and manualing as little as possible. Number 3, never double grind. Double grinding is grinding the same rail twice in a row. This gives a balance penalty. Instead, you should hop between rails to avoid the penalty. Number 4, never manual balance more than twice in a row. Here I have manualed twice in a row. This is fine. Next, I'm going to manual 3 times in a row. This gives a balance penalty. Number 5, Do not move the balance meter when unnecessary. If the balance meter is not moving, do not move it. In this line, I am not touching the grind balance meter at all. Number 6. Do the opposite manual to the manual balance meter. This makes it easier to maintain balance over a long period of time. Number 7. Stay in the air as long as possible. And number 8. Use bonus and wally plant to gain more airtime. The longer you stay in the air, the less you need to grind the manual. Number 9. Do not use overly complex lines or take unnecessary risks. You can see that I just fit the 900 into that air. However, if I try it again, you can see that this time I have bailed. Do not take these types of risks, especially when you're getting close to your target score. Finally, number 10, in my opinion, if using controller, use D-pad and not analog. With D-pad, there is less margin for error when pressing directions, and it's easier to make minor adjustments to the manual balance. Next up is line building. So, what is a line? A line is typically built up of 3 main components. Base building. This part of the line is designed to build base using big airs. It may include reverts if needed. Just remember you only get 5. And typically you would perform 2 to 3 laps of the base building line. Next, a robot or robo line. This is a line that you can perform consistently, like a robot. It's designed to build both base and multiplier. It typically wouldn't include reverts, again because you only get 5 of them, and you would typically aim to do 10 plus laps of this line. Finally, a multi-line. This line is designed to build multiplier. All of your specials are dead at this point. It will mainly consist of grinds and airs, because your manual balance is also dead at this point. And you just keep going for as long as you can or until you hit your target score. In order to make the most out of each line, we need to create what is known as a trick system. A trick system is essentially a plan of which tricks to do in which locations and in which stance. This ensures the maximum trick variation and therefore maximum points. Building a trick system is a process that you would normally go through in your mind whilst building the line. However, for the purpose of this guide, I am using illustrations to explain the process. Okay, so let's take a look at the baseline in game. So, firstly, what I do is map out the locations of the tricks in the line. This diagram shows the trick locations in the first lap of the baseline. Then what I do is select which tricks to use in each location. This diagram shows the tricks that I will use in the first lap of the baseline. So again, this diagram shows the trick locations in the second lap of the baseline. And this diagram shows the tricks that I will use in the second lap of the baseline. This table shows the list of special tricks used during the baseline. For the baseline, I'm not too worried about which flip tricks I use, but I would tend to use double or triple kick flips and heel flips because they are high value. For the lip tricks, I would use the Andrecht invert as it is one of the highest value lip tricks. However, I would point out that as you improve, you will most likely remove lip tricks from your line. It's a waste of a revert for a relatively small benefit. Finally, I would work out what my base should be after each lap. For example, after lap 1, it should be around 105,000, and after lap 2, it should be around 150,000. This is a good way of checking that you are on track. For example, if I finish the second lap on 100,000 rather than 150,000 base, I might consider restarting the run. Now, let's look at the robot line in-game. Again, we're going to map out the locations of the tricks in the line. This diagram shows the trick locations in the robot line. Notice that there is one big air and 3 normal sized airs. Again, we need to select which tricks to use in each location. However, we're going to do it slightly differently than the baseline. So for the big air, I am going to always use the 900. This is because I know that I can get roughly 10 laps, which means I can do 5 900s on each stance, normal and switch. Then, for the 3 normal airs, I will just change which special I use on each lap. So for lap 1, I will use the Misty Flip. For lap 2, the Kickflip Backflip. For lap 3, Warp Speed, and so on. This ensures that we are making use of all of our special tricks. You will also notice that in the table we have a grinds and flips column. In order to ensure that we are varying the flip tricks and grind tricks, we alternate between down tricks and up tricks on each lap. So by the down tricks, we mean all of the tricks that use the down button, such as down left, down and down right, etc. By up tricks, we mean all of the tricks that use the up button, such as up left, up and up right. This ensures that we are varying our flip tricks throughout the combo. This diagram shows the flip tricks that I will use in the down lap of the robot line. Notice that the majority of the tricks use the down button, such as down left, down or down right. And this diagram shows the flip tricks that I will use in the up lap of the robot line. Again, notice that the majority of the flips use the up button, such as left up and right up. And now let's look at the multi-line in-game. So this diagram shows the trick locations in the clockwise direction of the multiline. And this diagram shows the trick locations in the anti-clockwise direction of the multiline. For the multi-line trick system, we will just work our way through the grab tricks one by one, alternating between single tap and double tap on each lap. Also, if there are any special tricks that you did not use during the bassline or the robo line, now would be a good time to use them. So, this diagram shows the trick selections in the clockwise direction of the multi-line. Notice that we are just working our way through the grab tricks one by one. And this diagram shows the trick selections in the anti-clockwise direction of the multi-line. Again, we're just working our way through the grab tricks one by one. In the final video, we put together everything we have covered in a scoring demo. Just before we go, I'd recommend that you check out the tips and tricks page at winnythps.com/tips-and-tricks. This page summarises all the key tips and tricks taken from this scoring guide. The link is in the description below. Remember to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching.